Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. It's been almost a month to the day since that memorable Sunday when Kiely's vehicle was located and retrieved from the lake. There's been a fortress of silence on the one hand, for example, from law enforcement and Kiely's family, and a furious maelstrom of speculation on the other from social media. Now you might wonder, why has law enforcement been so quiet? Well, if you go onto the Twitter page profiles of Placer County and the Nevada Sheriff's County, go and have a look. What do you see? Well, they've been fighting fires ever since the discovery of Kiely's vehicle. They've been literally trying to help people prevent their homes and their lives from going up in smoke. And while that's been going on, social media seems to have been trying to fan the flames of accusation and speculation. Now, I've been accused of speculating, just like everybody else. You are speculating just like everybody else, without any factual basis. But now may be a really good moment to do exactly that. I want us to consider the possibility, firstly, if there is a major update in the Kiely Rodni case, if a major announcement that the investigation has been concluded and what the results of that are. And secondly, what's going to happen after that? What's going to happen in the aftermath? Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. So, is an update coming? Well, thus far, two mainstream media outlets have suggested a significant update is coming soon. These are News Nation and now, just a couple of hours ago, The Sun. Social media has also started whispering about the possibility. I think a major update is on the cards because sufficient time has now passed for the toxicology to have returned and for the final report to have been compiled and completed. If the major update doesn't happen today, it may happen on Tuesday or Wednesday. If it doesn't happen on Wednesday, I don't really see it happening this week. So what's going to happen depends on that update, right? The response to the update is going to depend on the update. I suspect that no matter what the outcome, we are going to get clarification, and with that, some new information. There is definitely going to be some new information that is going to skew the whole picture that we've already got. It's going to bend it one way or the other and make it sort of crystallize. It's going to sort of harden. So a picture that has been quite flexible and fluid is now going to sort of harden to some extent. But I suspect that we're not going to get all the answers, and there's a reason for that. And I think in that little gap where we don't have all the answers, I think social media will take it from there, deciding which parts they agree with, but also predictably doubling down on their particular view. So what do I mean? What I mean is, if law enforcement say, let's say, hypothetically, let's say they say, we've completed our report and our finding is that it's an accident, I suspect you'll see that dismissed as some sort of cover-up or collusion, and that law enforcement was dodgy from the start. Well, you couldn't trust them to get Kiely's vehicle, you couldn't trust them to get her belongings, do you trust them on this, right? Now think about that attitude if your house is going up in smoke and they are sending out evacuation orders and you say, no, I'm not really going to trust law enforcement. When the whole territory is on fire and they're trying to help you, no, I'm not really going to trust you. You see how damaging that can be? Now, the subtext that has been part and parcel of this narrative from the start is don't trust law enforcement. So who should you trust? Well, AWP, of course. And what do AWP say? Foul play. So if law enforcement have the temerity to disagree with that, and they say, we don't see any signs of foul play, what do you think social media is going to say? Conveniently, well, we just don't believe you. AWP have also said, if law enforcement say it's an accident, who is going to believe them? Who is going to believe them? On September 9th, 3 weeks after the vehicle was found, one channel literally asked, do you still think it was foul play? That was 9 minutes, 55 seconds into a particular live stream. And one of the members from AWP responded saying, when things don't add up, they don't add up. Too many coincidences become evidence. Circumstantial things become overwhelming. At this point, I'm beyond 50-50. Absolutely. Could this be an accident? They could come out and say that, but no one's going to believe it, right? That was 10 days ago. So if they do come out and say it's an accident, what do you think is going to happen? We don't believe you. We believe AWP. We don't believe you. We are the true crime community and we say otherwise. At 46 minutes, 30 seconds into that same live stream, the same member from AWP said, at the end of the day, they could come and say, hey, everything is just an accident and move on. Unfortunately, we are not going to move on as a public. I think in this case, it's just too much suspicion to those involved, to accept that. Well, where do you think that suspicion came from? Now, I don't know for a fact what law enforcement are going to announce, but let's say they do say that it's an accident, right? Then you say, well, what was the harm in saying, I think it's foul play from the word go? What was the harm in saying, I think it's suspicious from the word go? Well, the harm could possibly be by the time law enforcement makes their statement, it has become so entrenched, the psychology, the suspicion is so entrenched that people just refuse to believe it. And then who wins in that scenario? Well, a big YouTube channel wins and a small law enforcement agency loses. At 46 minutes, 14 seconds in that same live stream, AWP were asked whether the tow truck guy saw whether what he saw was confirmed to be Kiely's vehicle, right? And the answer wasn't yes. It was, as far as I know, yes. The authorities have all of that information. So here, instead of being explicit, it's a yes or no answer. That is deferred to the authorities, right? The authorities have that information. We don't want to mess up the investigation. Well, if the authorities are investigating and they are seeing it as an accident, and you saying all along it's foul play, isn't that messing up an investigation? Isn't that interfering with an investigation? Then there's another timestamp in that very same live. It's at 14:33, where someone from AWP was actually asked, were you asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement? And the guy answered, no agreements, but we're not trying to act unprofessional or disrespectful or compromise the investigation. So let me say again, if it turns out law enforcement says it was an accident, and AWP have been saying all along, with 99% of the true crime community, that it's foul play, that not only compromises the investigation, it compromises law enforcement. Trust in law enforcement goes down, and, oh, that's really nice, trust in AWP goes up. Now, in my opinion, I don't think it's a fait accompli that it is an accident or foul play. There could be a bit of both. I'm not backtracking. I'm simply saying I don't think if it's purely an accident in that a sober Kiely just drove into the reservoir. I don't think it was just something like that. Although we saw in the New Zealand incident that can and does happen all the time. That sober people can make mistakes. It doesn't need to be dark. You don't need to be drunk. You can have simple driver error. And I think that was the case with the Uber couple as well. I don't think that's the case here, right? I don't think that's all that happened here. At the other end of the spectrum, I don't think it's murder. And I think AWP putting that word in their title instead of foul play was unnecessary. I think it was insensitive. I think it was inflammatory. I don't think this was ever a murder investigation. And I don't think we'll ever have an arrest, charges, or a criminal trial. In a very real sense, this isn't a true crime case. Saying there was foul play makes it a true crime case, of course. And where would this case be if true crime gave it a pass, as some channels have? So although I think it's fair to say it was an accident with an element of foul play, I don't think the foul play opens the door to say someone intentionally tried to kill Kiely or even harm her. I think that there was an element of substances, and if you look at the Anne Hesh case, Anne Hesh would have been prosecuted for driving under the influence if she'd lived. She's going to be prosecuted anyway, in absentia. She's sort of liable in a posthumous way for the damage to property. I don't see that taking place here. So while there's this idea of being intoxicated leading to what happened to her, it's something that's not entirely accidental, not entirely innocent, but it doesn't really elevate to a criminal act. In any event, that's my opinion on what the outcome's going to be. I also think that the fact that law enforcement asked as recently as last Wednesday for the partygoers to come forward, it means that there's an acknowledgement, firstly, that the party is where everything happened. The time that the party ended is the time that party drove into the reservoir. And it's also an indication that they still don't know exactly what happened when everybody left and when Kiely left. So there is a missing puzzle piece there. And that's probably what social media are going to seize upon. This is basically part 1 of a part 2 episode dealing with what is going to come out of this major update. So look out for part 2 later today or tomorrow. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.